Hi dear students, today we are going to discuss the second part of 8th standard physics, that is force and pressure. In the first part, we discussed what is force, what are the actions to be made with a force, then what is resultant force, based on that resultant force, balanced force and unbalanced force we already discussed. From that class, we understood that unbalanced force that can only move an object. Balanced force cannot be move an object. If we apply balanced forces on an object, the resultant force experiences on that object will be zero. That is the main topic we discussed in the last class. Today we are going to discuss more thing about forces. Force can be defined as push or pull experiences on an object. In the last class we discussed the definition. Force is the push or pull experiences on an object. Today, we can classify this force into two types. That force can be classified into two types. That is, one force is contact force. And next type force is non-contact force. In this video, we are mainly focused in these two topics, that is, what is contact force and non-contact force. First, we are going to discuss about this force, that is contact force. What is contact force? Can you push or lift a book lying on a table without touching it? Can you lift a bucket of water without holding it? No, it is not possible. Generally, to apply a force on an object, your body has to be in contact with that object. The force applied by physical contact on a body, that type of force is known as contact force. What is contact force? If you apply a force on a body using your physical touch, that type of force experiences on an object is known as contact force. Do you understand? For example, muscular force is an example for contact force, and second is frictional force is another example. What are the examples for contact forces? One is muscular forces and second frictional force or force of friction. These are the main two contact forces that experiences in our daily life. What is contact force? Contact force is the forces that can act only with the physical contact of the object each other. Okay, that is one example is muscular force. What is muscular force? When we push an object like a school bag or lift a bucket of water, where does the force come from? This force is caused by action of our muscles. This force is caused by action of our muscles in our body. The force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as muscular force. Do you understand? That means the force caused by the action of muscles in our body, that type of force that act on a body due to the action of our muscles is known as muscular force. For example, if you kick a football, then you are using your muscle of leg. Animals also make use of muscles force to carry out their physical activities. Animals like bullocks, horses, donkeys, camels are used to perform various tasks for us. In performing these tasks, they use muscular force. Therefore, muscular force can be applied only when it is in contact with an object. That type of force is known as contact force. Therefore, muscular force is the example for contact force. The second type of contact force, that is frictional force. Then what is frictional force or force of friction or simply friction? Consider, if a ball rolling on a floor, that ball rolling along the floor gradually slow down and finally comes to rest. Another example, when we stop pedaling a bicycle, moving bicycle, it gradually slows down its speed and finally comes to stop. A car or a scooter also comes to rest when its engine is switched off. Similarly, a boat comes to rest if we stop rowing it. Can you explain what is the reason for that? In all these situations, no force is visible to our eye to be acting on these objects, but their speed is gradually decreased and they comes to rest after some time. What causes a change in this state of motion of these bodies? Yes, there is a force that acting on the bodies. Can you guess the direction which the force must be acting on each of these bodies? Yes, the force that responsible for the change of state of motion of an object in all these examples is known as frictional force or force of friction. It is force of friction between the surface of the ball and ground that brings to move the ball to rest. Similarly, friction between the water and the boat brings to stop when you stop rowing. That means the force of friction, the force that acting on between the surface of the body when a body moves relative to other body. That means frictional force experiences in the opposite direction of the moving body. The force of friction always be act all in moving object and its direction is always opposite the direction of motion. Since the force of friction arises due to the contact between two bodies, that's why frictional force is also an example for contact force. That's why we can define frictional force, that is the force acting along the two surfaces in contact that opposes the motion of one object over the other is called force of friction or friction or frictional force. Noted that, for example, if a moving body moves in this direction, then frictional force always be in opposite direction. If the ball rolling on the floor in this direction, then frictional force experiences by this floor on the ball in the opposite direction of the motion of the ball. That is the direction of the force of friction. That's why frictional force is an example for contact force. If the roughness of a surface increases, the frictional force is also increases. If the roughness of surface decreases, then friction of the force also decreases. That means the roughness of surface of a moving object. If a body moves on a rough surface, the body experiences a more friction in the opposite direction of the motion. If the body moves in a smooth surface, the value of friction is less for the moving body in the opposite direction of the moving body. That means we can conclude that frictional force that act on a moving body on a surface in the opposite direction of the moving body by the contact between these two surfaces. Then if the roughness increases, frictional force also increases. If the roughness decreases, frictional force decreases. That is the point we have to note that. The next type of the force is that is non-contact force. Then what is non-contact force? From this word you have understood that. What is non-contact force? The force acting between two objects without any physical contact. That force is known as non-contact force. Then can you act a force on an object without any physical contact? Yes, that some type of forces are in their nature. That type of forces are occurring in our nature. That is non-contact force. The examples for non-contact forces are, that is magnetic force. One is magnetic force. And second is electrostatic force. Electrostatic force. And third is gravitational force. Gravitational force. These three are the example for the contact force. One is magnetic force, and second is electrostatic force, and third is gravitational force. These three are the example for non-contact force. Then let's explain how these forces are experiences on an object. First example for non-contact force, that is magnetic force. What is magnetic force? When you bring a bar magnet near the iron clips, do not touch the bar magnet to the iron clips. Then the iron clips moves from their original position towards the bar magnet under the influence of force. That force is known as magnetic force. If you place two bar magnets near to, there is no touch, there is no contact between these two bar magnets. If you place these two bar magnets very closely, then you can observe that one bar magnet is attracted by the other bar magnet. That is example for magnetic force. You already learned in the earlier classes. In the case of bar magnets, like poles are repelled each other, unlike poles are attract each other. From this that we can say that if you approach north pole of bar magnet to the another north pole of the next bar magnet, it will be repelled each other. That means the magnetic force that may be attractive or repulsive force. Bar magnet acts both forces, that is attractive force and repulsive force. If like poles are close to each other, then it will repel each other. If unlike poles, north pole of one magnet approaches to the south pole of the other magnet, it will be attracted. It will be attracted. That means unlike poles attract each other. That is the example for magnetic force. Magnetic force may be attractive or may be repulsive. Understood? The next example for the non-contact force, that is electrostatic force. When you bring a plastic comb to a heap of small piece of paper, what do you observe? Nothing will happen. When you rub a plastic comb with your dry hair several times and again place this plastic comb near to the heap of a small piece of paper, then you can observe that these small piece of papers are attracted to the plastic combs without any physical contact. If we place without any physical contact between this comb and the piece of paper, this piece of paper attracted to the plastic comb. What may be the reason? The reason that if you rub the plastic comb in your dry hair, don't use oily hair, only rub with the dry hair. If you rub with dry hair, the plastic comb gains some charges. That means the charged body can attract uncharged bodies or another charged body. This type of force that can be experiences between the charged bodies, between the charged bodies or uncharged bodies, that means the force experiences due to charges. That type of force is known as electrostatic force. The force that experiences due to charged bodies is known as electrostatic force. In this case, we observed that the charged comb that attract uncharged paper pieces. That means charged body can be attract uncharged body, and some case it will be attract other charged body. This type of force between these two charged bodies or uncharged bodies is known as electrostatic force. Do you understand?
This is another activity. Rub an ebonite rod with a cloth, and another ebonite rod is also rubbed with the same cloth. Then we can observe repulsion between these two ebonite rods. That is, here like charges are produced on the ebonite rod. And if you replace one of the ebonite rod with a glass rod, then we can observe that attraction between these two charged bodies. That is electrostatic force.
You can do the same experiment with your two pens. Two pen, you can do the same experiment.
Then you can observe that this force will be repelled. One pen is repelled with another pen, because here same charge will be induced in this pen. And in this case, we can understood that in electrostatic force there will be attractive force or repulsive force. Like magnetic force, same charges are repelled each other, unlike charges are attract each other. That means positive charge and positive charge are repelled each other, positive and negative charges are attract each other. That is electrostatic force. From these examples and explanations, you have understood that electrostatic force is an example for non-contact force, because this electrostatic force experiences without any physical contact between two objects. The third example for non-contact force, that is gravitational force. What is gravitational force or force of gravity? You know that a coin or pen falls to the ground when it is slip off your hand. The leaves or fruits are also fall to the ground when they detached from the branch of tree. Have you ever wondered why it is so? When the coin is held in your hand, it is at rest. As soon as it is released, it begins to move downwards. It is clear that the state of motion of coin undergo a change. Can this happen without a force acting on it? Which is that force? that force is known as force of gravity or gravitational force between that acted between this coin and earth. When we throw a ball upward, it falls down towards the earth. After some time it travelled. Since the ball falls downwards, it is in motion. There must be a force acting on it. This force due to attraction between the earth and the ball, earth and the object, it is called force of gravity. In other words, object or things falls towards the earth because of earth pulls them. This force of attraction exerted by the earth on any object is called force of gravity or gravity of the earth. Do you understand? These are the main topic here we are discussed. Okay, let's conclude my words. Today we are mainly discussed that what is contact force and non-contact force. The force acted between two objects with physical contact, that is known as contact force. If the forces are acted between two objects without any physical contact, that is known as non-contact force. The example for contact force is muscular force and frictional force. Muscular force is the force acted on an object with the muscular activity, with the muscles action of a muscles, that is known as muscular forces. What is frictional force? If the two bodies are touched each other, if one body moves related to another body, then a force that acted on moving body in the opposite direction of the motion, that is known as frictional force. The non-contact force means example for non-contact force is magnetic force. The force acted due to magnet, that is known as magnetic force. Then electrostatic force, the force that experienced due to charged body is known as electrostatic force. Then gravitational force means the force that acted due to attractive force that is acted between the two objects in the earth or two objects in the universe. Gravitational force is the force that acted between two massed objects in the universe. In the case of earth, this is a force of attraction exerted by the earth on any object on the earth is called the force of gravity or gravitational force. Do you understand? Okay, thank you for watching my video. Let us do the follow-up activities and worksheets.
Observe the pictures. By analyzing these figures and complete this table. Situation is given. Force due to contact between objects with no contact between objects. Put a tick mark on the correct answer. Find out more examples for contact force and non-contact force and tabulate them. Friction is used in many situations in our daily life. Nevertheless, friction has some disadvantages too. Given below are some situations where friction is beneficial and non-beneficial. Tabulate them, such as situations where beneficial is beneficial and situations where non-beneficial.